Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. Right, today we're going to talk about this beautiful Summer of Pain Mysterio. 18,000 attack, 630,000 health, and obviously Acid Wash and Matador and a whole bunch of other stuff. It has caused quite a lot of commotion in the community at large, and there seem to be definitely two very large groups of players. Number one, a group of players that call this fight absolute bullshit. It needs to be nerfed. It's too hard. It's too specific. And then the other group that is basically saying, shut up, get good, don't get hit. And this is meant to be Summer of Pain, not Summer of Mild Inconvenience. And before we discuss anything else in today's video, I definitely do want to request that you guys remain civil in the comment section, as many of you will inevitably head down there to express your own opinion, which you are more than welcome to do. I always encourage discussions and thinking for yourselves. However, at the same time, yes, do not be overly vulgar. Make sure that the point that you're trying to make is not lost in hyperboles and in the middle of a whole bunch of cuss words. Right, so I will explain exactly what I think about this fight and how I would recommend approaching this fight myself. But before that, we obviously need to kind of like characterize the two groups of players that have been posting all over the place. We have half a dozen forum threads, we have active debates in all the comment sections. So the first group seemed to be largely comprised of mid to lower tier players, or maybe players who have two left thumbs, in general calling this fight too hard, too specific, and they do have a point. Legitimately, they do have a point. Because if we jump to this screen where yesterday I made a guide for this fight and I listed kind of like the more viable options, not all of them will necessarily be able to solo, but I actually have seen a solo with every single one of these champions. So actually, yes, all of them can solo. It's just whether you're going to be able to solo with them. I know that I probably would have to try very hard to squeeze in a solo with like Mysterio. Hats off to that guy, but it is out there now. So we do have 11 champions here, and we do have about 200 characters in the game. That would mean that it's about 5% of the champion pool that can do this fight, and it is a very, very large amount compared to obviously all breadth of our rosters. And we will have addition to that. Definitely, I believe Diablo will be able to do this fight quite well because he will be able to regen by himself, and he will have access to poison, which are like, well, most important things I suppose in this fight, because the chip damage is quite real. And yeah, so we're going to have another one there, but still, that doesn't really change the fact that it is fairly specific. Now, on the bright side, though, a lot of the champions that do work for this fight are relatively older, yet still really, really good, and are generally the most desired champions in the game, period. Like Nick Fury, like Magneto, like Archangel or Apocalypse. But that doesn't make it easier for people who do not have these champions. Now, on the brightest of the signs, which I'm going to get to later, you can still inflict damage even if you do not poison him. It's just going to take very, very, very long time. But that is the point. The fight is too specific. And as my personal comment there, I do think that Kebab has dropped the ball a little bit there. I do think that the very, very first fight, which was Rogue, was the best designed fight. It was very skill intensive, and ultimately you could use pretty much any champion that's ranked up highly enough, does enough damage. Then the second fight was already significantly more specific in Mr. Sinister, where you needed some specific qualities like immunity to shock, or ability to perfect block in Sunspot, or ability never to gain buffs in Red Guardian, but in general there was already a lot smaller champion base pool. However, the saving grace there was that, let's say, Sunspot, even as a 4-star, could function because of his perfect blocks. The fight would be longer, but it didn't cost you anything extra. And now we hear how a lot more exacerbated problem, because not only you cannot really use 4-star champions because well, the block damage is insane, and there is no champion that kind of would be able to do this fight in a prolonged manner, because it is, well, harder than the Sunspot fight. So also that there is a smaller champion pool that can address this fight. So it once again creates a lot more exclusive fight, which I do not think is perfect for temporary content. Now, that criticism wouldn't really stand as strong if this was a permanent piece of content, but since it's temporary, it can feel quite shit. But at the same time, just as the second group of people are saying this is Summer of Pain, it's not Summer of Mild Inconvenience, it's meant to be one of the hardest pieces of content, and obviously it's not meant to be for every single player, and it's not meant to be for small rosters or small amount of skilled players, I guess you can say. And that is kind of like the more relevant argument, because wherever appears this fight's too hard comment, there's always at least half a dozen people saying, no, shut up, get good, you suck. Which I think is a fairly harsh way to look at it. And I think the reason the response is that harsh, because we have had far too many of these problems on fights and in places where they were not warranted. I think because the first group of players complained so much and so often, people are just starting to lose patience, myself included at times. I have genuinely gotten quite worked up throughout my streams when people just come in and complain and complain and complain about every fight, and obviously eventually you kind of snap. And I think this is pretty much a collective snap from community saying it's like, no, shut up, enough now. And although completely understandable, I'm not entirely sure that's justified, because I think in this case the complaint's actually significantly more valid. However, at the same time, the problem here can be sorted with changing the way how people look at this fight. So yes, I named 10 counters, 11 counters there, that fight. But ultimately, if you look at this fight as a boss fight, and that's what we're going to do, if you take away that acid wash, but if you add 2 zeros, or 1 0, sorry, 1 0 to the Mysterio's health pool. So if you take away that acid wash node, you completely don't focus it, you pretend it doesn't exist there. But you pretend that Mysterio's health pool is 6 million health. It's basically 2 larger Labyrinth of Legends bosses, right? There is obvious difference that the fight is harder, and there's an obvious difference that he has 18,000 attack. So there's going to be a lot more chip damage. But dealing 6 million damage, not really that big of a deal. Most of us do it every day, obviously spread throughout many fights, but still. And I think that would potentially be how many people have to look at this fight. This is a type of fight where people who do not have a perfect counter need to make a decision. How much do you care? How much do you care for these Summer of Pain rewards? How much do you care for this event? And how badly you want to progress? And how much effort you are able to put in? That is quite literally what you need to decide. You can take a look at the Summer of Pain here. You can see that how to get points, we responded that. In this case, this milestone put you from 10,000 to 15,000 shots. And for many Cavalier players, who I assume would be majority of the people having issue with this fight, it is a way to getting, what is it, 25% tier 5 class selectors, and therefore a ticket to Thronebreaker. Now is the time you decide whether this is how you want to do it. If it is, then remind yourself that you have 6 days. You can grind well over 1,000 units in 6 days of arena. For sure, 2 cycles of arena, including battle chips. You don't even need to do all the milestones to grind out 1,000 units. As an example, I'm sitting right now on 1,300 units, and when the first round of Overseer Arena ended, I was on 200 something units. Now I did renew my collector's daily card, so that gave me 130 units, but other than that, every single other unit has been grinded out in a space of 3 days. So, if you do that, if you go farm some potions, if you go farm some revives, of course over a week, if you care enough for this event, and if you care enough for this fight, you can get it down, because if you can bring in any champion, as a point to demonstrate. I don't know. I'm gonna bring in a bloody Immortal Hulk for fun, whatever. Now, yes, he's only gonna deal 10% of his damage. If I have to use 10, 20 revives, you can get it done, right? Should. So I don't know. Obviously, I'm not gonna be playing well. But again, I think the kind of like most important thing here is how much do you care? Whoopsies. I'm sure I'm gonna do a couple percent damage here. Right? Or if I try to play more properly, I should be baiting out his level 1s. Then try to get to level 2. And then just go Hakuna Matata. Ah, actually, I just remembered I don't even have Liquid Courage Double Edge active, so there is that. Right. Let's see if I can get 3% down. I'm sure I can. Okay, he immediately goes level 3, but I am immortal. So I got 2% down. So if you get 2%, that would be 50 revives. So we need to do better than 2%. But I'm sure you can find plenty of champions who can do more than that. I'm just messing about here. Even if you can get 5% down with a champion. Whoopsies. So I got like 4% down here. Wonderful. 4%. It also counts. And I'm sure if I play well enough, I can get another 4% in another like cycle or something. Once my immortality goes back from cooldown. Or I can just die. But either way, no matter what, if you do 4% a fight, that's 20 revives, 25 revives. You can farm 10, 15 revives in a week, for sure. How many percent was that? But I don't know. And if you really want to get that fight done, yes, you're going to use a bunch of items. Yes, you're going to have to spend a fair amount of time getting it done. But you can get it done. And I think it's much more... I think it's much less about Kabam doing everything perfect and making a fight that works for everybody and seems exciting and super inclusive. But I think sometimes it's a lot more about you and your personal approach to things and the way you look at them. And if you don't have a perfect counter, look at this fight as a 6 million health pool fight. Bring in the champion that you think will work the best, that has plenty of healing, that has plenty of damage, and chip it down. 1 week to get it done. And yeah, I do sincerely think that since you are able to do the damage, since this is meant to be a really big challenge for a ton of people, this is meant to be the biggest challenge that this game has had, more people should look at it as such. More people, the people who are not entirely happy with it, that's fine. You cannot be happy with it, but you can still push yourself to get it done if you care enough. And sometimes I think that's all we need, myself included. I think too often, I take too negative approach in things in life or in this game or regarding Kabam. But it's not like they're at fault for all our problems, or it's not like their job to guess every single thing that we're not going to be satisfied with. Could they have done a better job at this fight? 100%. Could the community at large have had a better attitude towards this fight and look it in the eye and look at it as a challenge it is meant to represent? Also 100%. If the people who spend that much time complaining on the forums would spend the same amount of time grinding in this game and trying to progress, they wouldn't have the problems they are having right now. And I guess that is the point of this video. I do think that Kabam missed the mark a bit with this fight. But at the same time, I do think that anybody who truly wants to get this fight done can and will get it done. See you guys. Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information